What's up, friends? My name is Jess. Welcome to my Tinkerbell Readathon vlog. I have not done a readathon since November when I did Indigathon, I think. It's been a hot minute. Readathons throw me into a reading slump like nothing else, so one of my decisions for this year was to limit the amount of readathons that I do, but when I saw this one, I just had to. I had to do this readathon. It's so perfect. I'm not gonna say why it's so perfect right now, but if you keep watching this vlog until the end of the video, I think you'll get it. I think you'll see why I couldn't not do this. The Tinkerbell Readathon is being hosted by some of my favorite booktubers, including Rachel from Let Me in the Library and Christine and Mo from the Roomies Digest. I'll leave a full list of all of the hosts in the description below, as well as any other details related to the Tinkerbell Readathon. This is a map style readathon with different paths to choose from. Personally, I chose the path of trust without the path change in the middle. So I'm just going to do a walkthrough of the prompts that I'm going to be hitting and the books that I chose for those. My TBR honestly isn't as ambitious as I usually do for readathons, and that's mostly because this readathon started on March 6th and I'm filming this on March 11th. I'm having a little bit of a late start to this. One of the reasons being because I really wanted to read the Six of Crows duology for the Grishaverse read-along in time for their live show on the 14th, I think. So that took up some time, and then I meant to start yesterday, but I got some really good news yesterday, so I didn't want to start reading and filming. I just wanted some private time. So we're here on the 11th and the readathon ends on the 20th. I've had to make some adjustments to my TBR in order to make this easier to accomplish. So in order to do that, I'm actually doubling up the first two prompts. Ruler of Pixie Hollow calls for a book featuring royalty, and then Sister Sister calls for a book featuring, you guessed it, sisters. So for those two prompts, I'm going to be reading Three Dark Crowns by Kendare. In this world, you have a set of triplets all with an equal claim to the throne, each sister having their own special power. You have an elementalist, a naturalist who can control animals and plants and things like that, and a poisoner who, as you can guess it, specializes in poison. The triplets' 16th birthday marks a year in which the three sisters have to hunt each other down. The last sister standing is the one who becomes queen. The next prompt is Water Lily, and I'm pulling the prompt descriptions from memory, so excuse me if it's a little bit wrong, but from what I remember, it's either an Asian author or Asian representation. And for this prompt, I chose Silence of Bones by June Her. This is a historical mystery thriller that follows our main character Seol, who is an indentured servant to the police department. In this time and region, which later becomes Korea, the interactions between men and women have very strict guidelines, which means that male police officers aren't allowed to talk to female witnesses, they're not allowed to arrest women. Basically anything to do with women in an investigation, a woman has to do it, which is where Seol comes in. In the midst of a really politically charged murder investigation, Seol has to assist the inspector in figuring out what's going on, and along the way, they develop a little bit of a friendship. Seol's loyalty comes into question when it turns out that he is the main suspect for the crime. The next prompt is main character energy, which is basically just the chosen one trope, and for that, I chose Lore by Alexandra Bracken. In this world, gods are forced to walk the earth as mortals every few years as punishment for a prior rebellion, and during that time, humans are capable of hunting them down in order to steal their immortality. Our main character Lore lost her entire family during one of these hunting periods, but despite her wishes, she is pulled back into the fray when an injured Athena and her friend call for her help. And then for the next four prompts, I'm not going to tell you what books I'm going to read for them because it's kind of part of the surprise, but I will tell you what the prompts are. First up, we have Put to the Test, which is a book involving trials. Then you have A Girl's Best Friend, which calls for a animal main character slash side character. Then you have Good Day Sunshine, which is either a 5-star prediction or just a feel-good book. And last you have Girl Gang, which is female relationships, female friendships. I am very, very excited about this. I have until the 20th to read all of these books, and I think it's doable. Maybe I'll even finish early, in which case if I finish early I'm gonna try to fit in the group book, The Gilded Ones. Don't hold me to it. Again, readathons put me into a reading slump, so let's see if I even finish in time. I have already started Silence of Bones and Three Dark Crowns, but I'm like a chapter into Three Dark Crowns and like a few chapters into Silence of Bones, so I don't have much to say about either of them. Three Dark Crowns kind of reads like it's a fiction written online, maybe Wattpad, but I was never a Wattpad person, I was a Amoeba person. But still, that kind of writing style that you would find online circa 2012, that's kind of what this writing style reminds me of, which sounds bad, but hear me out. Those stories were really enjoyable, so I'm sure this can be really enjoyable too. Plus, I really love the world building that's going on. I love the intricacies of the politics here and what it means to be a poisoner. I've only read the first chapter, which is from the Poison Queen's perspective, and the things she goes through in order to be resistant to poisons, damn. I thought she was just naturally gifted, not that she had to be trained into it. And the consequences of that is kind of dark, and I'm kind of into it. So we'll see how I feel throughout the rest of the book. As for Silence of Bones, feels like a really classic crime fiction novel, which I love. I love crime fiction novels. There is the added benefit that I'm learning a little bit of historical Korean culture, which is interesting. Even in the first chapter, I was already Googling so many things to learn a little bit more, so I'm coming away from this book knowing more than I did before. Seal is kind of frustrating. She makes some frustrating decisions considering she's an indentured servant and her position in life isn't great. But yeah, that's where I'm gonna leave y'all. I think I'm gonna go read Three Dark Crowns for a little bit. I just finished filming my anticipated releases part 2 video, so I want to start editing that, but I really want to read. I'm kind of really into the books that I'm reading right now. I hope the audio for this clip is good because I can't set up my microphone right now. I have my sweet baby boy on my lap, which means I probably won't be moving for like an hour. But I wanted to do a quick update. I'm a little over halfway through Three Dark Crowns, and I'm a little under halfway with Silence of Bones. And I feel a little bad saying this, but with both of the books, they kind of feel basic. I feel bad saying that, but in terms of plot, both books feel very formulaic in their genre. So Three Dark Crowns has a really unique world building in my opinion. I really like how the powers come out. I like the magic system here. This is one of those YA books where they're not really trying to sugarcoat things either, which I really appreciate, but the plot is kind of formulaic. Nothing is shocking me. I'm not getting any twists and turns. It's not surface level because all of the characters are nuanced. It feels exactly what you would expect to get from a YA book. And in the same way, Silence of Bones is exactly what you would expect to get from a crime fiction book. Nothing is really shocking me in terms of plot, in terms of, you know, the secrets that they're finding out so far. And what I want from a good crime fiction book is to be surprised by all the secrets that are coming out, all of the information that detectives are pulling out, so that I can try to puzzle it together myself, but I'm not compelled to try to do that. What saves both of these books is the world that they're in. I like the setting, I think it's atmospheric, I think we're really dropped into these books. I will say that I'm enjoying Three Dark Crowns more than I'm enjoying Silence of Bones at the moment. I'm really eating through the book really quickly. It's kind of a fast read, it's an easy read, so it's kind of fun. It's not the most fun I've ever had, but it's pretty fun. It's gonna come down to the plot twist. And I have a little bit of a theory for what the plot twist could be. I don't really think this is spoilery, but if you don't want to know more about the book than what I've already said, I'll put like a spoiler warning here. So we know early on that Mirabella the Elementalist is very, very strong. However, her sisters, Catherine the Poisoner and Arsinoa the Naturalist, are not. Their powers are really weak. What if the sisters were switched? Mirabella is exactly where she's supposed to be. She has her elemental power. But what if Catherine was supposed to be a naturalist and Arsinoa was supposed to be a poisoner? I am basing this off of very little info, mind you. I'm basing it entirely off of the fact that their powers are weak or haven't come in yet, and on their names. Because I'm just like, I don't know. A girl named Catherine with a nickname like Cat should probably be a naturalist. And a girl with a name that kind of sounds like arsenic to me should be a poisoner. What if the reason their powers haven't come in is because they're trying to get a power that isn't theirs? I don't know. That's just me hypothesizing. Now for Silence of Bones, I also have a little bit of theory for what the plot twist could be.
So again, if you don't want to hear it, skip to the spoiler warning. Basically, I think the inspector could be Seal's brother. We know that Seal's brother left for the capital, I think, and she's assuming that her brother is dead because he hasn't written to her. Obviously, I'm going to assume that her brother's actually alive. It would be more of an emotional impact for her to find out that he's been alive and he just hasn't written her. And then we find out that the inspector has a little sister who would have been around Seal's age who is dead. Now, what if his sister isn't actually dead and Seal is his sister? But that really feels too simple, so I'm thinking maybe we're supposed to think that. Maybe Seal is going to start to think that, and what would have more of an impact is for her to get her hopes up and then have them crushed and find out that the inspector is not her brother at all, and she, at the end of this book, still doesn't know what happened to her brother. As for the real mystery of this book, which is the murder that happened, I have nothing to say about that. I don't have much care about that. I'm not invested in it. It's a very politically charged murder, and I think it's a good opportunity to learn a little bit about what may have been happening in this area at the time and the tension around Catholicism and things like that. But I don't really care about the politics behind it. What I rate these two books is going to depend entirely on the ending of them. But right now, both of them are also sitting at like a 3 stars.
So I have finished both Three Dark Crowns and Silence of Bones, and my theories for both of the books were correct. I don't love that. I don't quite love that. If I thought the theories were complicated things to figure out, I would feel a little bit better about myself because I'd be like, oh, I'm just really smart. But I'm not. I think they were both really obvious, and I don't know that that was the intention of the authors. Let me just start with Three Dark Crowns. The plot twist that I guessed within the first 100 pages is the literal last line of the book. It's literally the last sentence that the author ends on, so I can tell that she intended for it to be like a gut punch, like, say it isn't so sort of moment. But it wasn't, because I was like, yeah, I knew that. Were we not supposed to know that? It was a little disappointing in that sense. And while I think that the clues that were laid out were pretty easy to spot, I think part of the problem was also just that Three Dark Crowns is very much a formulaic YA. If you read YA often enough, especially YA of that era, you can figure out where things are gonna go. I am still gonna keep reading the series. Not in this video, but later on I'm gonna finish the trilogy because I don't know, I really like the world. I like the concept of these powers, and maybe it'll get better as it goes on because, you know, this is the first book in the series. There's potential for growth and improvement. I also kind of like the characters. I'm not like sold in love with any of the characters, but I also think there's a lot of potential there for them to grow and become more complex than they already are. So I don't know, I have hopes. I ended up giving the book 3 stars, by the way. I don't think that I mentioned that at all. I ended up giving Silence of Bones 4 stars. No, I could not have guessed who the actual murderer would be, but I also wasn't trying to guess, so whatever. I did guess what the plot twist was gonna be, but in hindsight, having finished the book, I don't think the author really cared if you figured it out, because I don't think the point of it was to have like a shocking plot twist. I also don't think the point of the book was really the crime either, although it was obviously crime fiction. I think if you go into this book expecting like a really good crime fiction, you're gonna be a little disappointed, because in terms of that, I think it's average at best. But if you go into this book looking for the discussions and the feelings and the relationships outside of that, I think you'll get more, because I think this is more a story of our main character looking for her brother and understanding the meaning of loyalty and finding her family and understanding where they came from and who she is and what she wants to do with her life. I wouldn't say this is a coming of age story, but I think it's a story of family ties and loyalty and love. I think that's what it is. I also want to read more books by June Her, but I'm not like dying to read more books by this author. I think it had an interesting setting. The writing was okay. It was a little bit atmospheric. It put you into the scene well, but it was just okay. If it's up your alley, if the premise sounds interesting to you, then go for it. You're not wasting your time reading this book. I think it's good to read it, and I think you're going to gain something from it. It's just how much will you gain from it? I don't know, kind of depends on you. So those are 2 books down, and now I have started lore. I think I'm on chapter 15 of lore, somewhere around there. So I'm not that far in, but I'm like a decent way into the world building and understanding what's happening. And I feel like I have some apologies to give out. First, I have to apologize to Katie from Katie Can't Read because I'm not in love with this book.
yet. And I also have to apologize to Rachel from Let Me in the Library because I don't hate this book yet. I'm entirely neutral. I think it has the potential to be really good. I've loved Alexandra Bracken books in the past, but right now the world building isn't too solid. I understand what the world building is, I get what's going on, but the way it was delivered feels kind of clunky. It was kind of like just large chunks at a time. There are some interesting mysteries to figure out, like what happened that caused Laura's family to be killed, you know, questions. I don't think I would lay awake at night if I could never get the answers to these questions, but you know, I'd also like to have the answers. I'm like halfway through lore, a little bit over halfway through lore, and I just wanted to pop in real quick and share some thoughts, share some theories. I just feel like the way we're getting information, the pacing of it isn't too hot, but hello. I can't quite put my thoughts into words right now on how exactly I feel about this book. I just wish I was enjoying it more than I am, but I don't hate it. Now on to my spoilery thoughts. First of all, at this point in the book, I think this theory is already pretty clear, but before we figured out that Castor didn't have a memory of killing Apollo, I had already kind of figured that this was a blameless situation. I figured that Apollo sacrificed himself somehow, that he allowed or asked Castor to kill him for some reason or another. Based on things that the Reveller said, it's pretty clear that Apollo was sick and tired of the Aegon and he just wanted to die. It's pretty damn obvious that Lore has her family's treasure. She has to have it. She obviously has to have it. I don't have any feelings on that. I really don't have any feelings on the plot either, but I did want to just mention the conversation she had with Athena when Lore starts talking to her about what she found out about Gil. And I originally just wanted to talk about that conversation because I really liked what Athena was saying about how Castor isn't really trusting Lore to set her own limits or is possibly hindering her from reaching her full potential. I don't think Castor has any ill intentions. I don't think it's a bad guy. I think Athena is being unnecessarily harsh, but I appreciated the sentiment of like, Lore is the one who has to set her own limits. Lore is the one who knows herself best and what she has to do, and you shouldn't let a guy, you know, try to hinder that. So I already wanted to talk about that, and then we got further into the conversation and we finally found out what happened to Lore, that she ran away from the Odysseus home. I'm a little bit sad. It's kind of heartbreaking to hear what Lore went through and what so many girls in this world go through still. I'm really happy to find out that Lore killed him because that's what he deserved, but it's just sad that she had to go through that in the first place and sad that no one else really helped her. I don't know, I just wanted to come on and just mention that it happened and my theory about Apollo. I don't have any coherent thoughts about how I feel about Lore besides that. Kind of feels like it's trying to be a Rick Riordan book without quite hitting the mark. So I finished Lore and I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars. It's not a bad book. I'm sure for some people it's a great book, but I had some criticisms about it. Again, the pacing of the plot, the events, the world building was all kind of clunky. Some things didn't quite make sense in terms of how everything flowed. My theory about Apollo was right, but I will admit I was shocked by the plot twist with what actually happened with Lore's family. That shocked me, but that's pretty much the only emotion that was elicited. I wanted to like this more than I did. And maybe I'm a little bit biased because there are other Greek myth retellings that I've read that I've liked more, and so this one just didn't compare. There were some parts in the book that kind of just felt thrown in without any real development or any real purpose behind it, which also was a little off for me. For instance, we have an LGBT relationship in this book, but we don't see any of the development behind the relationship. We don't actually see it become a thing at all. It just happens without any real basis for it happening, so it kind of felt a little bit like just diversity points. The ending also didn't really have any consequences to it, so there wasn't really an emotional impact. There wasn't any impact in terms of the romantic relationships. They didn't really care about the characters in general. I did kind of like Miles and Van. I thought they were both fun side characters, although we didn't really get to see them develop as characters and become nuanced as much as I would have liked. And I did kind of like Athena, although I wanted to like her more than I did. I wanted to emotionally connect with her more than I did. It's kind of like Alexandra Bracken could have gone deeper into the emotional side side of everything and everyone's backstories and who they were. And so I was left wanting to know these people more, but feeling detached from them at the same time. I don't know. I think I just wanted something from this other than what it was. And that's not entirely the book's fault. It's a little bit my fault. The only other thing I want to point out is past lore, so annoying. Present day lore was also kind of annoying, but at least she had trauma to explain it. Past lore was just annoying, and she caused messes left and right thinking she knew better than everyone else. But anyway, we are moving on to happier things because we're going on to the last 4 prompts in the readathon, and now I'm going to show you the books that I'm going to read for that. And they are all going to be Pixie Hollow books. I have an entire stack of these from when I was a kid. I only picked out 4 of them, but there are even more, and maybe I'll show you the rest of them and a little bit of b-roll. Obviously I had to do this readathon because I literally have Pixie Hollow books. What better time to relive my childhood a little bit and read them. So for the trials prompt, I'm going to do Vidya and the Fairy Crown. For the prompt with an animal side character, I'm going to do Beck and the Great Berry Battle. According to the back of this book, we have a little hummingbird friend named Twitter, and a war has broken out between the hummingbirds and the chipmunks, so it's all about an animal fairy, so I'm sure plenty of animals. And then for a comfort read, I'm gonna do Ronnie and the Mermaid Lagoon. And then for Girl Gang, I'm gonna do The Trouble with Tink. Obviously, these are all really short books, so I should be able to finish them in the next 3 days, which I think is how many days is left in the readathon. But in case I can't, I can definitely double up with some of these, because like all of these would count as a comfort read, and all of them probably have a Girl Gang aspect to it. But I'm honestly just so glad that I'm gonna have a little bit of fun reading these, throwing it back to my childhood. And I'm gonna do a little bit of b-roll showing you the illustrations inside, because part of the reason I loved these books so much was because I thought all of the drawing style and the clothes and things like that were so pretty. So I'm just very excited. I'm looking forward to this. I really don't think I'm gonna have any thoughts on these books, so I'll probably just come in at the end after I finish them. Finished the Pixie Hollow books, and as expected, I had a lot of fun. They're short and fun and cute. Honestly, I'm probably going to read the other 3 Pixie Hollow books that I didn't read in between other like bigger, denser books, because it's a nice quick read, doesn't take any energy out of me, and I can finish one in one sitting, so it makes me feel accomplished. I don't really have anything to say about the plot because it's what you would expect from a children's book, mild moral lessons. I do want to talk about the fairy talents here because it's a little funny. So if you haven't watched any of the movies and you haven't read any of the books, you may not know about the lore behind Pixie Hollow and the fairies, so let me give you a rundown. Every time a fairy is born, they have to search for their talent. Each fairy is talented in like one specific thing. They're super good at it. It's the thing that they spend all their time doing. It's basically their life's purpose. So you have water talent fairies who deal with anything to do with water. They make fountains, whatever. Then you have like gardening talent fairies who deal with all of the flowers in Pixie Hollow. You have animal talent fairies who can talk to the animals and take care of them. Tinkerbell, the most famous fairy, of course. In the movies, she's a tinker fairy, which basically just means that she can fix anything and build anything. In the books, they're actually called pots and pans talent fairies, which was weird, but okay. The movies do it better because I think the movies narrow it down to like, I don't know, 6 talents or something, one for every main character. The books get super specific with these talents, ridiculously specific. You have the normal ones, you have the water talent, you have the light talent, whatever. You start getting a little bit more specific. You have, you know, cooking talent versus baking talent fairies, which, you know, fine. Cooking and baking are 2 different things, I get it. And then you have, you know, message talent fairies that are somehow different from fast flying fairies, even though I feel like the fast flying fairies would be the ones you would send messages with, but okay, fine. Then you start getting like a little bit weird. You have laundry talent fairies, and that feels rude. You're seriously gonna tell me that I've been born as a fairy, all these magical powers, I've had pixie dust and all that stuff, and yet my talent is cleaning other people's clothes. Obviously, it's just a job. Like, let's just say that this is capitalism, propaganda, it's just careers and stuff. But it's not just a job, it's your talent. It's the thing that makes you the happiest. It's the thing that you want to spend all of your days doing. And you're gonna try to tell me that there are laundry talent fairies? And then you have fairies that are celebration setup talent fairies. That was a little weird to me, because I'm like, you don't have celebrations all the time. What are they doing on their off hours when you don't have a celebration to set up for? The book tries to play it off saying like, if there's no celebration going on, they help set up the meals and stuff. But then you find out that there are serving talent fairies and there are table setting talent fairies, two separate things. So if you have serving talent fairies and you have table setting talent fairies, what else do you need celebration setup fairies for during a regular meal? You see where the problem starts coming in, right? Where this is just too specific for you to pass this off as a talent and not just a regular job. And then you get to the very specific things, like there is a crown repair talent fairy. No, he does not just repair whatever. He specifically only repairs crowns. That's all he does. There is only one queen in Pixie Hollow, and therefore there is only one crown, but he is expert at fixing that crown. And then it really got to me when we were introduced to Prilla, who is the only mainland visiting clapping talent fairy. That's what she's described as. There's another book that says her talent is visiting the mainland and keeping children's beliefs in fairies alive, which is fine. But the first time that I'm introduced to her, they just say mainland visiting clapping talent fairy. I'm like, clapping talent. What am I supposed to do with that information? I just wanted to share. That's literally the only part of these books that I really wanted to share because I thought it was funny and weird and I don't know what to do with this information. Anyway, that's going to be the end of this vlog. I did technically finish all of the prompts, although I think I kind of cheated using very, very short books for the last 4, but whatever. I had a good time and I actually finished a readathon for once. There are a few days left in the readathon, but I'm not going to pick up the gilded ones because I'm a mood reader and I'm not in the mood. I don't think I'm in the mood to read at all. Like, I'm probably just gonna take a break from reading. But I had a lot of fun. This was all really cute. I'm glad this gave me an excuse to read these really cute books. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and comment below either what you're currently reading, or if you want to have a little bit of fun, comment what your hyper-specific talent would be if you were a fairy. In the meantime, I will see you in the next one.